After 28 days, Jey Uso has lost the Intercontinental Championship back to Bron Breaker. We saw near falls, super spears, and of course the Bloodline get involved with Solo, Jacob Fatu, and the Tongas, all targeting Jey Uso, which pretty much solidifies that we are going to be getting Survivor Series Bloodline versus Bloodline. But with Bron Breaker, he has now become a two-time Intercontinental Champion. And I gotta ask, what are we gonna do next with Bron Breaker? Now, I am a big fan of Bron Breaker. I am really enjoying his character, how it has evolved, and I am glad that they did put the IC title back onto Bron. It felt like with Jey getting that Intercontinental title, it felt like it was just a momentary thing to be able to push that Bloodline story a little bit further. Kind of give the Bloodline motivation to screw over Jey Uso, screw him out of his IC title, and thus propelling him over to SmackDown to get into the Bloodline story. Kind of forcing Jey's hand, where Jey Uso has not wanted to be involved in the Bloodline. Jimmy came back, tries to convince him, still says no, but now that Jey has lost the belt, now I think he has way more motivation to get back at his brother Solo. But with Bron Breaker, his first run was short, now he's got the IC title once again a month later, and I do feel that he is one WWE superstar that they really got a close eye on and have big hopes for. Because in less than a year of coming up to the main roster from NXT, Bron has been showcased very well. And slowly, and I mean slowly, but in a short period of time, his character has evolved. It has gotten stronger. He's getting better on the microphone. His promos are more engaging. He's got all the talent and the athleticism, but I really wonder, with Bron getting the IC title back again, what are they gonna do next? Who are the potential opponents for him? Let's go through the list. Okay, you could obviously do Jey Uso once again, but I'm gonna save Jey to the end because I got some thoughts on what you're gonna do with him and the IC title and all of that. One person they could leverage here and try to do something with is Dom Mysterio. Now, they did briefly touch on it on Raw of Dom going for a title and Adam Pearce just laughing it off. Now, obviously, Bron Breaker, Dom Mysterio, both heels, but that has not stopped WWE from doing this in the past, where you have this kind of matchup. And frankly, with Bron Breaker, they made him like a little bit of a tweener, where he's like, I respect Jey Uso, but he really wants that IC title. He gets the barking going on. He gets the fans behind him. The Bron he's slowly pivoting into that tweener role, or they can kind of pivot him when they need to. Because I think the fans are just starting to just enjoy Bron Breaker's work in the ring, regardless if he's like a nasty heel or he's a baby face. They can kind of leverage him how they want. So him versus Dom could be very interesting. Now, would Dom win the Intercontinental title? He shouldn't. He should not win it. But if they're playing hot potato with the IC title, I can see at some point them wanting to put a belt on Dom Mysterio. Gives him more heat, more leverage. I like when he was the North American champion, and it just elevated Judgment Day a little bit more, because I kind of feel like they're floundering right now as a group. No, I do not expect Dom to pick up the IC title next week on Raw or anything, or even in the next like 2 months. But you never know what they want to do with this. It could help propel his story a little bit further with Judgment Day, but maybe Dom just even mixing it up in the IC title would help. Somebody else that I very well could see get an IC title shot, and the program between them and Bron Breaker would work really well in my opinion, and that is Bronson Reed. We know we're gonna get Bronson Reed versus Seth Rollins at Crown Jewel. I like how this feud is going. I like that Seth is getting his revenge on Braun, and they're just doing the brawling stuff like they did with Braun Strowman and Bronson Reed. It really works for Reed's character. And I think you could do the exact same thing, the exact same idea with Bronson Reed and Bron Breaker. Have these two guys just smashing and going after each other a ton, and they could even trade the title back and forth. I do hope that in 2024 or 2025, more realistically, Bronson Reed gets a title, gets maybe the Intercontinental title. But to be able to have that type of match where it's giant super spears and tsunamis, it's the kind of matchup I think could work really well for both guys. And once again, you're kind of putting Bron in that tweener role. Okay, another personal pick here just for me that I want to see somebody get like a title shot and actually get a belt, maybe next year. Karrion Kross. I like Final Testament. I like the whole idea and the packaging, and I really like Karrion Kross as a character, as a wrestler, as a performer. I think he does great work, but they're always on the losing end of things. And carrying across his character backstage and manipulating people and doing that stuff, it works really well. But I don't know if at some point they can kind of pivot Cross, make him kind of a face with Scarlett. Maybe they have to break away from Final Testament altogether for this to work. But Cross, I feel, could use that. If they keep Final Testament together, I think they could use either the tag titles, which they're not gonna get because they lost the tag team contender match, but Cross with like the US title or the Intercontinental title on Raw, it could work well if they heat him up a lot more. He's great on the mic, and I think you could have an excellent program between him and Bron Breaker. And if you are going to eventually pivot Bron Breaker into much more of a solid tweener role or even a babyface, like just a new, Triple H style babyface, which is just, they are badass and they fight a lot, then you could keep Karrion Kross as a heel and have him try to go and do mind games with Bron Breaker, having Final Testament take out Bron Breaker, so it's the odds stacked against him, and you're gonna then elevate Bron a little bit higher out of that. But I would like to see Cross get the title at some point. Maybe it isn't off Bron Breaker, maybe it is off of a Sami Zayn or a Jey Uso, but I definitely still want to see it. Another one that I still definitely want to see, Sheamus. Now, we've had Sheamus versus Bron Breaker in the past, but the Intercontinental title is now in the mix. And I believe Sheamus is the one with, like, he has never won the Intercontinental title, correct? He had the whole program with Drew and Gunther for the IC title. A long program, a deep program between Sheamus and Braun can do a lot, as Sheamus coming in as that veteran who wants one final shot to capture that Intercontinental title. You could do Braun versus Sheamus at like WrestleMania for the Intercontinental Championship and give Sheamus that big moment of capturing the IC title. Braun, we know, could then just move on to the world title scene if he was done at Mania, and that is such a short window. But Sheamus versus Braun is a matchup in my head that you can go back and forth for months or circle back to it, revisit it. The good thing with Bron Breakker is I feel like he's very universal, is that you could kind of slot him in whatever kind of program they need. You want to just go and have like hard-hitting matches, you can put him in there for that. If you want to try and tell a deeper story, they could try that, but they haven't just yet. But I do think that it would be a cool story for Sheamus trying to overcome the odds against the young up-and-coming superstar Bron Breakker and trying to defeat him to get that one title that's eluded him for his entire career. Now, stuff I don't want to see. I don't want to see Sami Zayn. I love Sami, but I feel like the time has come where it's just, you step aside, Sami. Just no more IC title stuff. He had that world title match against Gunther on Raw, and it was good, but I just feel like I need a break of Sami Zayn because he's constantly positioned as the fiery, gotta defy the odds, beat the odds, babyface, climb from underneath, and that he's never winning. This was kind of the problem with Jey Uso, saying he's main event Jey Uso, and he was never winning main events until he did, and then everyone was happy. But with Sami, we've seen him win the Intercontinental title. Then we see him pivot over to the world title. I don't really need to see Sami Zayn going after the Intercontinental title once again and going up against Bron Breakker again. It feels a little bit been there, done that. And that's where I really feel like a draft is needed with WWE. Like before Mania, we're probably gonna have to stretch things out until after WrestleMania for that to happen, and that's okay. But you start going through the rosters of both Raw and SmackDown, and you can see how WWE has kind of cycled through like everybody at this point. Now, I mentioned Jey Uso earlier, and like, what can we do with Jey? Because now he's gonna go off and he's gonna have the bloodline stuff. There are some options here that could involve Bron Breakker still. Hear me out. You could end up doing a trade. Within storyline, one of the things, and this could help Bron Breakker with a potential opponent for him, into WrestleMania, let's say, but we all know Jey Uso is gonna show up on SmackDown, and it's gonna set up the Survivor Series War Games match. WWE might do nothing, and they might just allow Jey Uso to come over from Raw and be on SmackDown temporarily. That's not a new thing. But what would be more interesting is if the GMs and storyline didn't want to allow Jey to just freely come over. You're seeing Bloodline interfere on Raw now, and then you're gonna see Jey show up on SmackDown. You can tell that they're gonna do more of the cross-brand things, and that can work for Survivor Series, but what do you do after that? The Bloodline story is not gonna end, and you got way more now to tell with The Rock, Bloodline, the original Bloodline, Jimmy, Jey reuniting, Roman and Jey finally coming back together. You're probably gonna try to get all of the Bloodline characters on SmackDown. That leaves a hole on Raw. So I can see the GMs wanting to do some kind of trade to say, if Jey's gonna keep showing up here, we can't have that. Jey, you're getting traded over to SmackDown, or Jey requests to get traded to SmackDown so that he can go handle the business there with the family. So they gotta trade somebody to Raw. So comment below, who would you trade if you gotta do a trade? Who do you trade to Monday Night Raw for Jey Uso? even if it's for the next 6 months, because again, you get through to WrestleMania, they can do a proper draft. Then everything gets reshuffled. I got 2 names that you could do within the next 2 to 3 months. You could trade Jey Uso for Kevin Owens. Now we know that Kevin Owens is in the middle of turning heel, and he's gonna go and fight Randy Orton, and he's gonna fight Cody Rhodes. And Kevin Owens' heel turn right now, I think, is a really well executed turn. It's not just that he woke up one day and all of a sudden he's mad and he's gonna go super heel. It's been a slow progression. But because this bloodline story takes over everything in WWE and there are layers to it, which I love, Jey Uso coming back to SmackDown could aggravate Kevin Owens' character even more. Cody Rhodes originally was the one who brought Jey to Monday Night Raw, which angered Kevin Owens in the first place because of everything they went through with the bloodline. So it's still, again, within Kevin Owens' character, it's still Cody's fault that these things are happening. So if Jey shows up on SmackDown more and more, and Kevin Owens gets through the match with Randy, and they get to the match with Cody Rhodes, which is what he's really after, and WWE and the general managers decide that Jey Uso is going to permanently be on SmackDown to deal with the bloodline story, it would make sense for Kevin Owens' character to say, I'm out of here, because I don't see him beating Cody Rhodes for the title. And once that happens, where he loses and Jey is on SmackDown, Kevin Owens might say, I'll get traded and I'll go over because I don't want to be near Jey Uso and the rest of the bloodline and Cody because this is all his fault. And then you get Kevin Owens over on Monday Night Raw. Now, could Kevin Owens go up against Bron Breaker? Absolutely, but it allows for another heel on Raw to mix it up. And Bron Breaker versus Kevin Owens for the IC title would be pretty cool. You have a bitter, disgruntled Kevin Owens, and you got a fired up babyface or tweener in Bron Breaker. It could be an excellent matchup. Promos would be great, and it would help elevate Bron Breaker's character in the promo department, I think, too. Get him to break out a little bit more. Now, the other trade we could see, it's not as exciting, and this person is injured right now, but going through the entire SmackDown roster, I don't know who you would pick that would make sense for the IC title. So for me, it's AJ Styles. AJ just showed up on SmackDown, came in as a babyface for his return, and he got injured. And he got legitimately injured. We don't know how long AJ Styles is going to be out for, but if he did come back within the next few months, you do this whole Jey Uso bloodline story on SmackDown, you could then trade AJ over to Monday Night Raw, gives AJ Styles a fresh feel and shakes up Raw, and you get babyface for babyface trade. And AJ versus Bron Breaker would be excellent, and that to me is WrestleMania caliber if you want to have that match one-on-one.